The Vancouver Canucks make significant changes to the roster, and Canucks' top prospect might be heading to North America. I'll get into this later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to say to the thousands of you watching that aren't subscribed, if you're enjoying this daily Canucks content and you don't want to miss another episode, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button because we're all season long giving you updates from all around the Canucks. But with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Canucks make roster changes. Now, practice did just finish just a couple of hours ago, and when you do look at it, they made some significant changes to their lines. When you look at the first line alone, Höglander, Pettersson, and now they're joined by Garland. You look at the second line, Suter, Miller, Boeser. Third, Mikheyev, Lindholm, Lafferty. And then you look down at the fourth, and it's Podkolzin, Teddy Blueger, and Amon. Now you do look at the defense as well, as there are a couple of changes. Hughes, Hronek, Cole and Myers, Sidorov and Susi, and you see Friedman and Juleson are extra skaters as the 7th and 8th defensemen. So the Canucks are looking at making some changes. Obviously, they were on a 2-game slide. They blew a couple of leads that shouldn't have happened. So it looks like the coaching staff said, hey, we need to try something else. We do not want to go into a slide and let this become a regular thing, especially with the regular season closing to an end quite soon and the playoffs starting up. Now, when you do look at this, there was another change, and Elias Lindholm was back on Power Play 1 at practice today. This is another big thing I've recently did in yesterday's video, speak about Elias Lindholm and how his struggles offensively has affected his game quite a bit. Yes, defensively, he has looked great. Yes, right now, he is looking like he's going to play between Mikheyev and Lafferty, which I do want to say, if he's looking to get his offense going, this might not be the best line to do it, but overall, this line should be hard to play against, and with him getting power play one time, it's just a matter of time before the monkey's off his back, and he can finally get some goals, assists, whatever it might be, just get himself going on the offensive end. As I said, defensively, he has been great. It's just you can't have this guy in the lineup where he cannot produce. He cannot do anything in the offensive end. Do I think he can't do it? No, I think he most certainly can. It's just a matter of time before he gets the monkey off his back, I said. And maybe this is why the power play is going to be an important role in this case. But when you do look at it, Rick Tocchet didn't get into details, but he was also talking about we're not going to have Dakota Joshua here for a little bit more. So don't look for Joshua to return this week. 5 weeks tomorrow since the injury. There was another update that Patrik Allvin did kind of speak on, Thatcher Demko, and it doesn't seem like he will be back anytime soon. It seems very likely that he will be back for game 1 of the playoffs, but it's just a matter of do we get him back a couple of games before this, or if it's going to be just one of those things where it slides a bit longer, we get him back game 1 of the playoffs. Yes, the rest is good, but you want this guy to be in game shape for that game 1, which could be against the Vegas Golden Knights, which is not going to be an easy opponent. Like I said, Dakota Joshua should be back within the next couple of weeks. Then you also have these line changes. What's your thoughts on this? Do you think these lines are the perfect lines? Do you think these lines need to be changed once again? And what's your thoughts on Lindholm being put on Power Play 1? Do you think this is actually going to help his offensive game? Maybe he pots a couple, gets his momentum going, gets his confidence back, and changes everything up. But this gets me into my second topic today, which is Rick Tocchet speaks out. Now, when you do see this, Rick Tocchet spoke to the media just after the game, and he was talking about dropping back-to-back games after a 4-game win streak. We can preach the negative, and yeah, we are pissed, but at the end of the day, the large sample size is we've done it, had success. Yeah, the Heat is a little hotter now, we get it, but it's the same thing. Everyone has to go up their game a little bit, find another level. And like I said, it's just a matter of, yes, the Canucks did drop a game against the Colorado Avalanche after holding a lead. The same thing with the second period collapse against the Washington Capitals. But when you do look at the Canucks over their last 10 games, they've had some very good games in that span. You look against the Winnipeg Jets in a 5-0 win. The Vegas Golden Knights, they won 3-1. They beat the Ducks, which, I mean, is not too much to talk about. The LA Kings are a strong team. They did beat 2-1 on March 8th. They did ultimately lose to them 5-1 just a week before that. They lost to the Penguins, they beat the Bruins, and they lost to the Kraken. So it seems like this is a little all over the place. Yes, they are on a 2-game slide. Yes, they blew some leads. Yes, some of these losses were ugly. But when you do look at the grand scheme, they are 5-5 in their last 10. They've beat good teams. Like I said, they've beat the Kings. They've beat the Bruins. They've beat the Vegas Golden Knights, the Jets. They've beat good teams in the span, but they can't just have these losing habits of giving up in the second, in the third. The second they kind of get just a punch in the gut, it looks like they fold sometimes. This is a team that wants to be successful and make it deep into the playoffs. And like Tocchet said, they need to just put this behind them. They need to pick up and find their next level. He did kind of talk about just the changes of lines, and he does go on to say, just get more energy for certain guys. It was a really good practice day, so hopefully that energizes some people. It's a long season. Every once in a while, it gives guys juice when you put different lines and people together. It creates urgency. Players know, hey, they're switching lines. I better get my game together. Now, obviously, I agree with this completely. Changing the lines up, you might find something that works perfectly. We had the third line, the lotto line. These lines looked good. Obviously, with injuries, players being moved around, things had to be changed. But you're hoping to spark something within this team. Maybe Garland goes up on that top line with Höglander and Pettersson, and it looks like one of the best in the league. Maybe Lindholm helps Mikheyev, and Mikheyev helps Lindholm find their offensive game. Switching things up this far into the season is not that bad of a situation. Yes, you would like to have things figured out by now, but it's always nice to try now instead of game 1 or game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals or in the middle of the playoffs. So what's your thoughts on this? Do you think Tocchet's doing the right thing by switching the lines up? What's your thoughts on their past 10 games? Do you think there is a bit of urgency and they really need to pick their game up? Or are you just fine with how things are going? Once they're healthy, things will be even better. But with that, I want to get into my third topic today, which is quite a big one in my opinion. And it's Jonathan Lekkerimäki heading to Canada. Now, right now, I did just finish watching this game. And in the Swedish playoffs today, we've seen Örebro beat in the SHL playoffs 1-0 in overtime. They did get beat pretty bad. But the big thing with this is this means Örebro is out of the playoffs. And with that, that means Jonathan Lekkerimäki is currently done his SHL season. Now, if you don't know who Jonathan Lekkerimäki is, I won't go over him too much as I spoke about him quite a bit before. Jonathan Lekkerimäki is 19 years old, right-handed shot, right wing. He's 5'11", 172 pounds. He was a 15th overall pick for the Canucks in 2022. He did just finish his season in the Swedish Tier 1 League. 19 goals, 12 assists, 31 points. This was a guy that played quite a bit of hockey this year. We've seen him in the World Juniors, ultimately lose in the gold medal game, so he did capture the silver medal. He did score 7 goals in this game, which turned out to be the most in the entire World Junior playoffs, or in the tournament, I should say. He also won the World Juniors MVP, and he also finished with the top 3 player on his club team. This was a guy that's had a phenomenal season in the SHL. It is quite sad that it's over for him. Like I said, he was his team's best player. He looked outstanding in the World Juniors, and just his development this season has been huge, not only for him, not only for Örebro, but for the Canucks organization. This looks like a guy that could come over and be a superstar very soon. I'm not saying he's going to join the Canucks this season, come in, be the best player, but there is a chance, and with his season being over, it looks like a decision is coming very soon. So there was an article just kind of wrote about him a few weeks prior, just before Örebro made it to the playoffs, and it says, well, I think he's got his final game in the Swedish League coming up, but I do think he's in the discussion for World Championship team, Allvin said. So it sounds like Lekkerimäki might stay back and get ready for Sweden, the men's world, instead of joining Abbotsford in the AHL, although no final decision there yet. The Canucks are weighing the benefits of Lekkerimäki coming over to play some AHL games or staying home to train and recover ahead of the juniors. That's something we'll talk about, Allvin said. Initially, our plan was to bring him over to Abbotsford, but then Sweden's national coach reached out. So obviously this is quite big. I mean, right now Abbotsford is 31, 23, and 4. They're 8th in the standings in the West, and they're just 2 points ahead of Calgary in the AHL standings. So getting a guy like Jonathan Lekkerimäki would be quite big for this team. This is a guy that's an offensive juggernaut. You put him on the power play, he will score if you go on his elite prospects. And just look at his prospect rankings. If you look at how people describe his game, he looks like one of the league's best in the SHL, I should say. Power play guy, he can come over and make an immediate impact in the AHL. If you watch the game today, they put him in the bumper spot and it was not working. I was yelling at my TV about this. But overall, getting him over to Abbotsford might be the Canucks' best interest. Even if you only get him over for a couple weeks, then he joins the national team later on. You want to get this guy as much hockey as you can get and get him used to North American ice. This is a guy that's 100% undoubtedly going to make the training camp next year. This is a guy that I could see really fighting for a spot on this Canucks roster this year, and at the very least, he will be on Abbotsford and get a call up at some point. The future is bright for the Canucks, and what's your thought on Jonathan Lekkerimäki? Did you watch any of the SHL games? Are you excited for him to come over? And where would you slot him in this lineup if you wanted to get him over and showcase him for a couple of games? But that will be it for this episode of Canucks Digest. If you enjoyed this episode, as I said, you can go down and hit that subscribe button. If you didn't enjoy it, I'm sorry you never. And if you don't want to subscribe yet and you want to wait a couple episodes, then I hope that you enjoy the next few and you do end up subscribing so you don't miss out on any content. But with that, that'll be it for this episode of Canucks Digest, and take care.